Okay, here we are. Hello, Ron. How are you? Usually Ron introduces me, but now I'm, all gung ho here. And Ron needs to go and get his haircut today, and plus a million other things. So we're like, okay, we've already delayed enough, so to speak. So without further ado and no introductions, let me introduce the title for today, because perhaps Ron might be doing more talking this time. Perhaps I may ask him some questions. You see, he had some videos before about, Jewish topics and stuff like that. And I said, okay, well, I don't feel like that topic is attracting me right now. So there's another thing. While he's doing those videos and other ones also, the word truth keeps popping up. So I figured let's just explore this topic. Let's go for the sanctity of truth as a rather pretentious title for today's video. Now, I don't know how this will come off. And this is off the cuff again. And basically, we talked about 5 minutes, and we said, well, oh, here's something that came, because before those 5 minutes, I had no clue. So, Ron, you speak a lot about truth. And most of the time, when you speak about truth, you speak about telling the truth, as opposed to maybe how other people or myself, I think about truth. The truth is out there. Truth is like an independent entity. It's, nature is truth. The truth of divinity, the truth of life, the truth of love, all these things where you move through life and truth finds you, or you live your truth. For you, it seems the fundamental descriptor of truth is telling the truth, a more vocal, verbal expression of it. Is this basically telling the facts or something deeper? I mean, how does it relate to you?
That's an interesting question, because truth to me, it stems from being in integrity. It's where I am now, so that my truth is somewhat fluid, in that new information that comes in will allow me to alter what I believe the truth is. And I think everything is in terms of religion or spirituality. And that, again, is a fluid thing. It's not fixed. There's only one basic thing that's fixed, and that's love. And that, of course, that people take that in many different ways as well. But as I did in the video that I recorded in case we didn't make it, which will be the next video, there's certain people that give themselves a blanket amnesty, and they don't have to tell the truth for the following year, from one Yom Kippur to the next. That gives them permission to lie, in other words. And that is insane to me. Truth is subjective, and there are absolute truths. I believe that we did not get here by accident, that we were created, that there was actually an outside influence, if you will, that created us from its own substance. And substance, again, implies physicality when it is really spiritual.
Does this preclude evolution, or is this like
Oh, of course we're evolving.
Okay.
But it's not like oh, we're going to make a lion out of a mouse. No, it's not. That's not what evolution is, and it's not. We're going to make man out of a monkey. That's not evolution. Evolution is change within a species, not from one species to another, as I see it.
So species are distinct entities that have all been pre-created then.
To some degree. Now, that may not be an absolute, because look at all the different varieties of dogs and cats, for example.
Yeah.
And those evolve sometimes through crossbreeding and other factors.
Well, species are, you can actually crossbreed in the same species, but you cannot crossbreed outside of a species. I guess subspecies like donkeys and horses, you can crossbreed, but the result is going to be sterile. So it can't
Correct.
perpetuate itself.
That makes the mule, and the mule cannot reproduce itself.
Exactly. So
And
you're saying
some people have the idea that that we were created by archons. You've probably heard that expression.
Yes. That's
And
where I was going to go.
initially, we were not able to reproduce. And then Christ came in and messed with the original Luciferian creation and gave mankind the ability to reproduce, which sort of pissed Lucifer off, because that gave us a genetic predisposition towards something other than the slave mentality that was inbred into the Luciferian creation of man.
So you essentially, to keep it on topic, because we can go all over the place with this kind of thing, as you know, and sometimes we do. But to stay on topic, you see these kinds of ideas as truth as you see it, because you believe in them, and they resonate with you, for example. But then tomorrow, when you have information, other information, or something else happens, or you evolve, let's say, your view, you may not agree with that, what you believed in yesterday.
Yes,
but then,
in fact, if you look back at some of my video chains, I mean, there were things that I was involved in that I absolutely was convinced were the next truth that needed to be brought to the world. And then as I learned more and experienced more, my mindset shifted, and I no longer believe, for example, that Swiss Indo was the truth. I mean, that's just one example of several, that I could use several examples.
But for you, you never lied, for example. I mean, for you, you were always speaking the truth, even if the truth changes for you along the way.
That's how I see it, yes.
Okay. Because that's an important distinction. Somebody else will say, yeah, but, you didn't have the facts. See, my impression was, when you say tell the truth, for me, it's like, well, we need to express the facts as we see them, but the facts change all the time. But
we've been lied to.
Exactly. We've been lied to. But the thing is, it's natural. I mean, you never have all the information. You're a child. You only know so much. You gain more information, more facts, so to speak. But even then, you might not have all the facts. You might have the wrong impression. What we're talking about now is truth in the sense of meaningful, something that resonates for you.
And it's subjective. There's a level of objectivity to it, but it's basically the subjective, or the how it's being perceived at a specific time, because that evolves.
Exactly. I agree. And I want to emphasize also that there are two terms here. There's the term subjective and there's the term relative. So a lot of people confuse those two terms, or maybe they define them differently than how I understand them. Subjective is how the subject, me or you or anybody, experiences something. Subjective does not mean untrue for me, because it's my feeling. I mean, technically everything's subjective. I mean, when you measure something, you measure it, it registers within you. Your senses, your mind, everything comprehends something. The whole reality is actually an internal process as you understand it. So it is all subjective. And then we have these common subjective reference frames, like through the five senses, rulers, where we measure things in common concepts that we consider objective, when in reality they are agreements. And for example, for the Hebrews, the ancient Hebrews, an agreement was a sacred thing. They called it a covenant. You made a sacred agreement based upon something that they sacrificed when it was with the divine. They gave the blood to God, they ate the meat and whatever, and it was a sacred agreement. They cut the covenant, which means they would split the animal up, and if it was an agreement between two parties, then each of them ate half the meat. And thus, through the process, they shared the organism. The animal embodied the concept of the agreement, the truth of the agreement, and then both of them that truth became part of them. So if they broke the agreement, then the chain, for example, if I break an agreement with you, just to get something more, then, you will you will suffer because of it. Well, that suffering is going to come on to me if we have an intermediary. That animal is like the connecting link between two people. For example, you become the victim and I become the perpetrator if we have an agreement and I break it. This is what governments do all the time.
The time.
All the time. But however, if there is an intermediary like an animal, and this was the belief, this is how I'm interpreting it, and you eat part of it and I eat part of it, then that animal is going to react. If I hurt you, then I hurt half the animal in you. So this is symbolic. You don't have to go kill animals and do that kind of thing. But what it means is that what is our common link? Whenever we make an agreement, our agreement is based on what we have in common. It's an alliance. It's an agreement. I mean, that's the whole definition of agreement. It's something that we choose along the same lines. And it's a common frame of reference. Even though we may be seeing it from opposite points of view, it's still common. Now, you say love is really the standard here. And that is what we have in common. Wherever love is missing, that's where you have victimization. I mean, that's a no-brainer. Wherever you don't have love, and it doesn't have to be some deep, emotional, passionate, erotic, whatever.
Oh, of course, and it won't be most of the time.
Exactly. I mean
that's a separate category with circumstances that have to do with reproduction, with sexuality, with a much deeper personal connection.
Even deep friendships are not necessary. I'll take it even further, because those are based on certain common personal experiences you may have with another person. Look, Facebook and the internet have created an artificial situation. Now, a normal human individual, as we are, cannot have 5 million friends. I mean, it's impossible. You cannot. The definition of friendship is something personal. There's a commitment involved. I've seen people on Facebook who basically say, if you're my friend, go to my site and say all these nice things that you like about me. It's like, I don't even know you. What do you mean? I'm busy. I'm doing other things. What is this? Why do I have to? Would you give up something for me then if you're my friend? People are like missing human contact and they're seeking to create a substitute. It's like, those aren't friends. The people who made up these words, did it on purpose to mess people up, to unground them from the tangible personal relationships that we all desire, and put them into this abstract cyberspace type of thing. And thus, that's where the truth gets swizzled. And everything gets swizzled. It gets stirred up, and confused. And we miss what we have in common. You don't need that. You don't need all of these things. I mean, scale down the situation because it's too overwhelming. And when it's too overwhelming, the whole concept of truth goes out the window because relativism creeps in. We get overwhelmed and we want to say, well, I want to hold my ground here. I belong to this race, I belong to this religion, and I'm going to support that. And then in this society, that would sound often that oh, you're a nationalist, or you're a racist, or you're some fanatical religious fundamentalist, whatever. All because you try to hold on to the labels of your own individuality. And you wouldn't be doing that unless there was a concerted effort to undermine your individuality, to mind control you, or to spread you through this trendiness, this whole thing of trends that have nothing to do with how you truly feel, for example. But you want
the New Age movement goes a lot along that line to me, in that they totally take out of context the individual's personal experience and viewpoint, and it becomes irrelevant because we're all one, and individuality is lost in that process. So that it's not only lost, it becomes totally irrelevant and even abhorrent to many people. And I mean, I've lost a lot of my friends in the spiritual New Age movement because I won't go along with some of the far out beliefs of there is no right and wrong. I mean, there is things that are objectively as well as subjectively right or wrong to me.
See, that's the distinction that I was saying. Relativism is not the same thing as subjectivism. I mean, my opinion is different than yours. Well, let's step back for a minute. I mean, I feel love, you feel love, we all feel love, we feel pleasure, we feel pain. You take a pin and you prick me. That is a subjective experience. It's an experience internally. Senses, you know, I see red, you see red. They call that objective. But in reality, you know, and you can separate it. You can say, okay, well, subjective, you know, this is a sensory experience, is different, it's physical. Well, let's take an emotion. My my experience of rage, for example, is similar to your experience of rage because we share certain objective or external or sensory indicators like body language. If it wasn't for the body language, if I could just sit down and stay calm and feel my rage, and I'm not talking about repression, I mean feel it more intensely than I would ever feel it if I went out screaming and yelling, because I spend energy screaming and yelling. That energy can be focused within on feeling. So that is a subjective experience. Then I would realize a wealth within my feeling that is a world unto itself, and that would connect me more with other people. Subjectivity, true subjectivity, connects us all. That's where we realize we are so-called one continuum, not one singularity or point. You know, we need to remember something about the so-called New Age movement. And again, it's a very convenient term. I don't even know what it is. You know, what is this New Age movement? I mean, as opposed to the Old Age movement, you know, it's a bunch of marketed concepts of spirituality that people have interpreted, modernized, reinterpreted. It's a smorgasbord. It's like saying, okay, you're in the Protestant, I'm a Protestant. Yeah, but are you a Methodist? Are you a Baptist? Are you a Seventh-day Adventist? Or, you know, and most people outside of that, like a Eastern Orthodox person, will look at the whole Protestant spectrum and go, what is going on here? You know, are these people Christians or are they different religions? Or it's like, you know, the Catholic or the Eastern Orthodox is like a subspecies of Christian, while the Protestants are different breeds within a subspecies. And then the Muslim is another species. You know, it's almost like that. But all of these are concepts, and the so-called New Age has taken on strange connotations that have nothing to do with, you know, I don't know. It's not an entity. All it is an accumulation of belief systems. And the belief systems say the following, that we can shift our viewpoints from the traditional views of spirituality because we're living in an age that's different than what things were before. The modern age has differences, so we adapt. And we are a global culture. We don't have to be a new world order, but we can still realize that we're cosmopolitan. And so all of these other traditions come and interact with ours. So we have comparative religions. We can't help it. You're not your closet so-called Christian or your closet Muslim anymore. I mean, it's unavoidable. So you're not going to go out and create conquest. That's what the system does. The natural trend of religions that are supposed to promote, and this is what I read about Islam. It's like, look, Islam, from the point of view of Islamic people, is a religion of morality. It's not so much like Christianity claiming as a religion of love. It's a religion of morality. The Prophet Muhammad came because people were immoral. They were going against divine will, and they were acting, in ways that was harmful to them, in ways that would lead to their destruction or something. So they said, look, do this, this, and that. Follow these so-called rules. You know, be more loving, be more ethical, be more moral. You know, all of these things. The golden rule. You find the golden rule in Islam. You find it in Christianity. You find it in Judaism. You find it in Hinduism. You find it everywhere, in Buddhism and Taoism. You know, all of the isms have the golden rule. And so that is a basis for religions. And that's what the new so-called age is supposed to recognize. One of the things. The rest is a bunch of marketed stuff, you know.
marketed to divide in many cases.
In many cases. I mean, it's a combination, because you have this, Americans want, this all started in America. Americans want to make money. Now, everybody else does, but you have it a culture of let's make money. Oh, wow, can we make money off of this? An idea. Wow, it's an idea. Let's sell yourself. Now, in every other part of the world, when they say sell yourself, you're going to put a slave collar or be a prostitute or something. You know, in America, when you say sell yourself, it's supposed to be a good thing. Promote yourself, market yourself, you know, advertise yourself like you're a product. I mean, that is, to me, slave thinking. You're actually sneakily being taught to see yourself as a slave because you're objectified. Feminists are pissed off because women are objectified. You know, various races are pissed off because racial concepts are objectified. You know, this and that is objectified. Youth is objectified. Pedophilia comes out, oh, we're objectifying, you know, this and that and the other. This is all a product of, you know, somebody looking at you as a commodity, as, which is only, you're a slave then. So where's the truth there? I mean, when people say tell the truth, the thing is, are you subjectively able to go into a depth to understand what's around you? You know, you don't have to go and research and uncover and find all these histories. I mean, this is the thing. We live in a reality where they can distort, and I say they by whoever has access to information, the sources, whoever has the resources, the monetary resources, you know, people who allegedly control the system, the social systems of the world, they can play with information. They do. And they can distort information to the point that people become so stressed they don't care anymore. As long as their lives aren't directly threatened, they don't care. They don't care if they're being slowly poisoned. They don't care if they're being slowly incarcerated. They don't care if they're being turned into objects that later they won't be able to argue against their own termination. And they don't care because it's too stressful to care, because it's too much, because they've lost their truth. And so they can't expect in their very society, modern society, not just American, US society, because now it's all over the place. It's this attitude of instant gratification has been sold to us. So if we seek to heal, it also has to be instant. You know, if we seek to recover from trauma, something inside of us says, well, this should be instant, like our gratifications, like our instant fast foods, like our everything, like our, you know, going to church and instantly somebody sticks their palm on your forehead and heal, and you're, oh, yes, it's all better now. You know, all of this, when they don't understand or have forgotten that truth equals process. Otherwise, it's happening without your presence. If something happens, that is the sanctity of truth. Sanctity, holiness, wholeness, wholeness and truth are parallel terms here. You know, if something's fragmented, it's not all there, so it's not really true. You know, it's only, there's only a partial.
We have all been fragmented, like it or not.
Exactly.
That is the truthful reality of the human experience.
Exactly. We have lost our sanctity. Our truth has lost its sanctity. It's still there because there's part of us still here. But the pain of that leads us to choose lies because our truth isn't whole anymore. It's not sacred anymore.
It's an emotional overload that causes us to react in that way.
That is the subjective experience. And so we resort to relativism. We say, well, that's my truth, forget it. Leave me. Basically, we say, I want to blabber and blabber and blabber and vent because I feel frustrated, but I don't want to hear anything you have to say because it causes dissonance. So that's my truth, that's your truth. Let's all blabber. Let's all go on Facebook and just blather away. Let's make videos and send selfies and little Pinterest, you know, or what do you call it, Instagram things. You know, people now make these little videos on their cell phones and send them to each other, and moment by moment, and then they get deleted, and then the new video comes up. Anything to distract us. We used to have videos before, you and I, about the escapist tendencies of the New Age movement. You know, even though the New Age movement is really anything you want it to be. There are many people who have so many pro-New Age arguments that are reasonable, in my opinion, but they don't address the other ones, which they say, well, those have nothing to do with the real New Age movement. Those are just, shills or this and that. And then you have people who, like, for example, you were talking about David Icke. The man inspires you. He inspires many people. I liked him a hell of a lot more when he started talking about down-to-earth things, except as opposed to experiences to which he could not totally relate, so they came off strangely with other people. He couldn't put them into a context.
Yeah, following his ayahuasca experience.
Yeah. He doesn't have spiritual training, shall we say. He doesn't have a certain grounding in what all of these things
Well, he's
are.
a footballer, or as we would say in America, a soccer player.
Yeah. But he has experience with human society. He has experience with people. He's able to put this in the social context, and he's very, very good at that. And
anybody that can go 9 hours on a conference on the same day, that's
exactly, yeah. and he's passionate, But the thing is, what I hear from many people in the so-called alternative movement is, you have like they say that if anybody disagrees, if you have two people, both famous in the alternative movement, and they agree with each other, they're shills. So if they fight each other, then one of them's a shill. The other one isn't. You get to pick. So basically, as long as we're divided, then we're honest. So the truth is out there. It's just your truth, my truth, their truth. And it's just like, what's going on here? Either people are completely stupid, or these people, or completely ignorant, or somebody's out there to create division. And if you ever approach and say, well, what are you doing here? If you do this violently, they will make you look bad and say, oh, he's reacting emotionally. See, emotion is considered a weakness. Psychopaths are the ones who consider it a weakness, actually. And everybody else has learned to follow their lead. We follow the lead of psychopaths, and we don't even know it most of the time. We consider it normal. So, but if somebody actually acts rationally, composed, and says, look, I point out to you that you're actually flying off the handle here. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. They withdraw, they apologize, then they try to present a more rational viewpoint, and then they come back to the original premise again of demonizing anybody that is saying something that makes sense if you actually, are not completely hypnotized by the establishment and has a following. I mean, you can make sense all you want, as long as you were attacked when you had a following. Now that you don't really have a following as much, and almost very little actually, nobody's bothering you. Your life is much more peaceful, and things are much more smooth. As soon as you get out there and people start listening, then it's a whole other story. You had a fresh thing when you came onto the scene, and somebody even said, Ron, you should make videos. You told us that, and you touched upon that 9-wave thing, the 9th wave, and then put emotion in it, and there's somebody who's sincere. Then all of a sudden, because you were making mistakes, certain people took advantage. Because you were sincere, other people took advantage. And so, these people basically, between them, they gave you an image that other people don't trust. The masses that want a solution, but the masses that want a solution, they are not the crowd that you wanted in the first place, in my honest opinion. In my honest opinion, the root cause, and now it seems we're veering away from the topic, but the root cause of a lot of the mishaps that occurred to you is because your truth was not resonating with the expectations of the people listening to you, of the majority, of those 5,000, of those 10,000, the people in the Karen Huda's video, the people on the Mr. Sino videos, the people with the ambassador videos when they were more in the thousands. They expected a solution.
Yeah, I had the one video that had 51,000 views. Wow. I didn't even know that till recently.
Yeah, exactly. And that's almost celebrity status. I mean, then,
by the way, your 30 minutes is almost up, 15 seconds.
Oh,
but no, I mean, I'm just, so that because you go 5 or 10 minutes over anyway.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. Well, it's a good thing you told me. I probably would have gotten half an hour with this thing. So, oh, is that a telephone or a doorbell?
No, that was the timer saying the 30 minutes are up.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's good. Boy. All right.
I didn't realize it rang. It doesn't ring for me, although I usually shut it off before it gets to that point.
Pissed off at me now. So the title of this video is The Sanctity of Truth. Truth is sacred because it represents wholeness. In a jury, in a court of law, you say the truth, nothing but the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God, etc. You have religion, you have spirituality coming into it, and the fact is wholeness and truth are interlinked terms. So in this case, truth is not so much relative, meaning that it's different for you than it is for me, because wholeness is wholeness. What my wholeness, however, the wholeness that I represent is my subjective perspective, is the subjective perspective of me, is the experience I am having. If I resonate with you and you resonate with me, we share that. That's an intersubjective experience. It is not objective. It does not go outside of us. Technically, there is no such thing as objectivity. It is a convention. There is, but it is a convention. And that's okay. It doesn't mean the world is an illusion. It means that objectifying is usually taking something out of context and thus outside of its truth. All truth is within. This is something that's not easy to understand because we have been conditioned to objectify. That's what everybody says. What's objective? This is your subjective. This is just your opinion, meaning you're full of shit, meaning you're bullshitting, meaning, you may not be consciously bullshitting, but you're lying without being aware of it, or you're lying consciously, which is even worse. So they don't see the truth like you do. They see facts. They see objective. Objectification means you are a thing. Objective means you have no soul. The soul is a subjective
You are a corporation.
Thing. You are a corporation, a corpse, a corpus.
Exactly.
That is objective. So you say, well, are you a subjectivist then? Well, all of that. No, because these are all loaded terms. They are terms that are evaluated in an erroneous manner. If you want to set up a terminology, you got to go back to basics. You got to go back to what you sense, what other people sense. And I'm not talking philosophy. I'm talking basically what is your premise of truth? Is it your feeling? And is that arbitrary? Is that whimsical? Are you so shallow that your feeling is just some surface whimsical whirlwind thing or swirly thing that can change with the winds that has nothing to do? Do you have a center? That's what I'm saying. A solid center of being. You gauge your truth against something. There is a touchstone for gold. There is a touchstone for truth. Is love the only touchstone for truth? Is love a sentiment? Is love an emotion? You see, in these videos, I do not strive to provide answers. I strive to provide suggestions and to understand more deeply. Your sense of truth is something that can evolve, that is subjective, but it's not relative. Meaning, is it absolute? It doesn't have to be absolute either, because relative and absolute are a polarized dynamic. They're either or. You can throw the whole thing out. Say, no, it's not absolute and it's not relative, because absolute makes it rigid. It objectifies it again. We objectify God as something that has to come down and do us a favor or fix us or do whatever. That's not love. Love is something from within. So if God is love, the only place you're going to experience God is within. There is no God on the outside, unless you experience the outside from within yourself and acknowledge that. For example, when you experience nature, the beauty of nature is something you experience within. Then you can experience the divine in nature or as nature. You can experience another individual in deep love, whatever level of love, for example. But the divinity of another person. To say we are all one is very, very shallow, because it's an arbitrary concept. It's in the mind. I saw this for, well, we're one. what's the average person supposed to make of that? You know, that's not a mystical experience. You know, can you actually look at somebody and give them the sense that they're one with you without, you know, freaking them out or looking creepy or whatever? You know, what does that even mean? Can you be one with another person without violating them or being violated by them? You see, if you cannot, or if you end up getting traumatized by an experience of attempted intimacy with another, then you're not ready. Your boundaries are not strong enough or flexible enough, and at the same time, your center is not strong enough and true enough because it's fragmented. Thus, healing is paramount. It's important. Knowing your truth, your subjectivity, who you are, what your values are, and why is very, very important before you go out and claim these are objective values. I hear a lot of people claim reason. If we could only reason, is it rational? Yes, but reason is not just subjective. It's relative because it depends on perspective. It depends on initial conditions. You know, what are your basic premises? You know, the reason of a religious person is different than the reason of an atheist. They have different premises, if an atheist is even possible, because most atheists are actually, their God is reason. Many intellectual atheists, for example, and thus they worship Lucifer, who is the mind, the human mind, the brilliancy of the mind, or the way where humans can reach. It carries the light. Spiritual light comes in through the mind and all mystical centers, and then it reaches the heart. But if the mind is not open to it, there's a barrier between the heart. You know, usually the mind just has to get out of the way. I mean, it has to be transparent. And so that's what, you know, the whole thing, it doesn't add its 2 cents. It doesn't pretend to be God. You see, if the mind can just do its true purpose, which means open up and let the light fill you, then you feel like God, but you're really not God. And it doesn't matter because you're one. And then you're the one that goes into the heart because you give the heart form. Light has a vessel, and that vessel can actually translate into thought and emotion. The mind isn't just intellect. It's all kinds of facets of perception, of sensory awareness, of reality creation, of emotion, you know. And then this goes and touches the heart and blossoms into a greater energy field. And that goes and touches the abdomen and goes into the deepest recesses of our gut and our instinct, and the animal and the human merge. And then love can be said to be whole because we are fragmented. The animal is fragmented from us. The angel is fragmented from us. We are fragmented from each other. You know, so then you try to speak about God, which is a whole thing. God is holy. If you're fragmented, how can you even, you know, that's the dilemma. How does a holy God, a Holy Spirit, connect with an unholy, profane manifestation, corporeal manifestation that's turned into a corporation on top of it, is convinced it's a corporation, subliminally, if not, you know, consciously. However, if you can actually claim your own truth, the truth that is not possessed, it's not yours as a possession, but claim it as a sanctity, something sacred to you. What is sacred to you inside? What feels sacred? And move from there, step by step. Because if you have something sacred, not have, but if you are something sacred and you stand up, then you can begin experiencing glimpses of this thing called love beyond the parameters of how we interpret it, but including them as well. Then you can enter the realm of both and that we keep talking about. So I guess I can leave you with these thoughts, and to ensure that we just don't go on in circles and everything. So
and I can get my hair cut.
Exactly. You got to get there. And go party tonight, man. Have a good time.
Thank you, Aristo. Appreciate you taking the time. We're not going to be able to talk much now afterwards like we usually
That's
do.
okay. Yeah,
but I'll make sure that the video gets up, you know, by 5 or 6 o'clock tonight before I head to go to hear my son play.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, so we'll be seeing it up there in several hours then.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Well,
have a good day.
You too. Namaste.
Bye-bye.